From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Thanks, Benji. Nice to hear from you today. It's Monday, the 11th of November 2019. It's rained dats and cogs today in Manchester. It's been dreadful. But what harm, eh? I'm looking forward to this week. I hope you are as well. Thanks for joining the show. The usual Twitter handle applies if you'd like to talk to me during the programme. I have a brilliant guest for you today. I'm looking forward to this particular show. Let's get on with it then.
Richie Allen.
It's the Richie Allen Show. Broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
Now, the amazing Mark Bajerski returns to this programme. What a guy Mark is. The founder of the Pure Energy Healing Academy. MarkBajerski.com. He's an author as well. A special guy. We're going to talk about lots of things today. We're going to talk about psychic attacks. We're going to talk about anxiety, because it's real. Television, climate disaster, gender identity issues, identity politics, what it's doing to people. We'll talk about the year 2020 as well. And we'll also talk about navigating the independent media, because the information that we discuss on programs like this has a real impact on some people, and they don't do well with it. It's difficult to come to terms with it. So we'll talk to Mark about that as well, and much more besides. Before that though, extended news roundup, lots to talk about of course, and I'll try and keep, and I'm promising this quite a bit, the electoral talk to a minimum. That's me promise anyway, that's my promise. Vote number one, Richie Allen. What does that mean, number one? Proportional even, representation, darlings. They don't have it here in the UK. It's the first past the post system here. If you get one vote more than your opponent here, you get elected. And yeah, it's not that interesting. So I'll leave it right there. 5.5 minutes already. It is past the hour. Horrendous old day today. But anyway, brief bit of electoral stuff, briefly. Because the Brexit Party, Nigel Farage being the leader, though bizarrely, he's not going to be standing for MP anywhere in the UK. Farage announced today that his party will not stand candidates in the 317 seats held by the Conservatives right now, or won by the Conservatives at the last election in 2017. He said, Farage, that standing candidates across the country could increase the chances, the chances even, of another EU referendum taking place. But he said his party would stand against all other parties and focus on taking seats off of Labour. How do you know a politician is lying? Well, yes, it's the old chestnut. His lips are moving. Why? Well, Farage made a pretty big deal and a pretty big song and dance about fielding more than 600 election candidates, didn't he? Well, anyway, giving his reasons, he said that Boris Johnson had recently signalled a big shift of position in his approach to Brexit, that Boris wouldn't extend the planned transition period beyond 2020, and that Boris would seek further divergence from EU rules. I trust Boris more now, says Farage. Yeah, here he is, Nigel Farage, with Sky News political editor Beth Rigby.
We have to hold him to these pledges, and our plan for doing that is to fight in areas, particularly areas where people voted leave and now have a Remainer pro-second referendum MP, to get voices into Westminster to hold him to account.
But this is a number of it, and this is still, you are still a problem, you are still a thorn in the side of the Conservative Party, because the seats that you're going to fight are the seats that Boris Johnson needs to win for the Conservative Party if he's got any hope for a majority. These are Labour seats, they are Tory targets. Can you just be clear on this? Are you still going to field candidates absolutely in all of these seats?
Yes, that's right, we are. And, it will be a full-on attack on Labour, who have broken their promises in their 2017 manifesto, and who, for many people in these northern constituencies, it feels like a London Labour Party. Now, There'll be seats in which they're a closer challenger to Labour, and seats indeed in which we are a closer challenger to Labour. Let's see what happens.
This isn't the beginning of a U-turn, is it? You're not going to do another U-turn in a couple of days' time where you say, now I'm going to stand down.
No, we've made our minds up.
No,
we've made our minds
marginal
up.
Targets
No, we've made our minds up. We've made our minds up.
You're not. This is it now. This is the final. Not even offer.
Let me be clear. We are fighting 300 seats, not 600 seats, and we will focus our activities, our efforts into those areas. Let
me be clear. When it comes out of the mouth of a politician, is a prelude to... Well, it's not a prelude to. It's code. It's code for, I'm just about to tell a porcupine. Farage. Had a giggle I did shortly after this morning. When Farage announced this, I had a right laugh. I heard a Brexit Party candidate calling into LBC radio. He was pissed right off that nobody had told him. This is Tim in Pendle. And Tim thought he was standing for Nigel Farage's Brexit Party. And then he heard Nigel on the telly. And he realised that he wouldn't be standing. So Tim phones in to LBC useful idiot-in-chief James O'Brien.
It appears that I've been stood down without actually having any advance notice.
Oh, well, I don't know whether to sympathise or congratulate you. What would you prefer?
Sympathy, please.
Well, I feel very sorry for you, Tim. But you know, you put your trust where you put your trust.
Yeah, the sympathy isn't for me personally. It's for the supporters, the Brexiteer supporters in my constituency, who have been inundating me with phone calls and emails over the last hour with fury that they have been denied the opportunity to vote out our incumbent Tory MP, who is only clinging on by a very small majority.
So you felt you were in with a proper shout?
Absolutely. The Labour vote here has been imploding. Our canvassing is showing the Labour vote is completely disappearing. So we had a
we have to be slightly careful, as you know. We're in an election period, and that is a matter of opinion that you've expressed. So let's deal with things we can actually measure. Will you be seeking a refund?
Well, we haven't actually submitted our nomination papers yet.
No, I meant for the £100 that you paid to be considered as a candidate.
It's a thought. I haven't got round to that.
There's 3,000 of you, I think, let alone. I mean, you were one of the very few to not only get through the process, but to also get what you consider to be a winnable seat.
Indeed, but the main concern here isn't my £100. The main concern is that the constituents here do not have an opportunity now to go for a clean Brexit. They're saddled with a soft Brexit of Boris Johnson.
Tim is not too happy, God love him. There he was, geared up for the election campaign, and he switched on the television, and Nigel Farage was saying that half of those he's asked to stand for the Brexit Party will be stood down, including poor Tim. What does Prime Minister Boris Johnson make of Nigel Farage's decision? Sky News, well, one of the Sky News reporters asked Boris Johnson, did he phone or did he speak to Nigel Farage before this decision was made? This is brief.
Look, absolutely not. But what I can say is that I'm glad that there is a recognition that there's only one way to get Brexit done, and that is to vote for us and to vote for the Conservatives.
Looking forward to reading your tweets. Paul tweets, Richie, I see the Remain Alliance hashtag is trending on Twitter with Remainers suggesting a similar strategy for Labour. Do you know, it doesn't matter, Paul. It matters not. What happens, it doesn't matter who does any deals with who. It doesn't matter who wins seats where, in what parts of the country. We're not going to see Brexit. The UK is not going to leave the European Union. That's the end of it, sadly. And everything else is pure theatre. This is all, this is all offcuts, really. Right? That's all it is. It's one big theatrical presentation that will engage more people than ever before, because like in the United States, people are returning to this nonsense. More and more people engaging with it on Twitter and on Facebook and on other social media platforms. They love it, people. Love it. And we're not going to leave. It's 13 minutes or thereabouts past the hour. Hi to Base Ninja. Hi to Steve James. How you doing, Steve? Hi to Joe Public. How you doing, Joe? Why not stand as an independent? Joe Public puts to Tim from Pendle. It's a very good question, and if I was in James O'Brien's shoes, I would have asked him that. I would have said that to him. You know, you can always stand as an independent if you truly believe that so many of your constituents are pissed right off that you've been stood down by Farage. Why not stand by yourself? All by yourself. Why not? Is right. Here's a big story. Big story this. The old ears pricked up today when I heard this on news on BBC News 24. James Le Messier, White Helmet's co-founder, discovered dead in Turkey. This is very big news. Listen to this. A former British Army officer honoured by the Queen for his work with the White Helmets civil defence group in Syria has been found dead in Turkey. This is James Le Messier, the body of whom was discovered today, near his home in Istanbul. The body of James Le Messier, this former British Army officer, former intelligence officer, who founded the White Helmets, or was very, very involved in the beginning of the White Helmets, is dead, discovered outside his home in Istanbul. He set up the Mayday Rescue Emergency Response Group, which helped to train White Helmets volunteers. Here's BBC reporter Caroline Hawley. She's speaking with news anchor Simon McCoy, and they play a nice relaxing game of Blame the Russians, which of course is always good fun.
Some security sources are talking to the Turkish media and suggesting it may have been suicide, that he may have fallen from a balcony, but we really don't know. He had a lot of enemies. Certainly the Russians and pro-regime groups didn't like him at all. And
well,
he was
the Russians
subject
named him 2 days ago as an MI6 agent.
Yes, they did, Simon. The Russians did name him a couple of days ago as an MI6 agent. And the Russians are that stupid that they will start tweeting negatively about a guy like James Le Messier, and then they'll just kill him. Really?
That's right, and said that he had connections to terrorist groups dating back to when he is supposed to have served in Kosovo.
Of course he has links to terrorist groups going back to his days in Kosovo.
So there has been a vicious online campaign against him, and one of his friends told me that had put him under stress. But we really don't know. But it's because he has so many enemies that this has led to some speculation that foul play could be involved. What we do know is that the area where his body found has been taped off, and that a police investigation is now underway.
Leg fractures is all we know prior to the autopsy. Mackay does mention his military background here.
A British Army officer at one stage. I mean, what do we know about him personally?
Well, we know a lot, but I bet you Caroline Hawley is not going to share it with us today.
Well, we know that he's in his 40s. We know that... Certainly we know from his friends and colleagues that he had a big heart, that he was very motivated on a humanitarian level. And one of his friends that said that he thought that the structure of the White Helmets, which he helped found but also helped fund, train and equip, that the structure of the group was strong, that it would carry on, but a big hole had been left. And one friend said he was one of the few people who'd left a humanitarian footprint in the country. So a big legacy there.
A lot of shock amongst his friends too.
Shock and sadness, and the White Helmets have said that Syrians will always remember his humanitarian work. Oh, they did literally save and rescue thousands upon thousands of Syrian civilians.
That's propaganda, that. There's no proof that they rescued thousands upon thousands of Syrian civilians. Absolutely no proof of that. I'm not saying they didn't rescue anybody. But the White Helmets are far from that which they were portrayed in that Netflix documentary. And I've been talking about this for years. Ever since the White Helmets launched their website, where they specifically stated, explicitly even stated, that they were in favour of the partitioning of Syria. Hardly the sort of thing that you would expect from a group that were civil defence minded or civil defence motivated. This is a political group, a paramilitary group all along. So if the cause of death isn't known, leg fractures apparently, that's according to the Turkish media. This guy is a former MI6 operative. And I don't believe there's ever such thing, or I don't believe there is such a thing as former CIA former. Well, I do in the case of people like Ray McGovern and others. There are former, but in general, these guys never leave the agencies. And this guy certainly didn't. Served in Kosovo, links to terrorism, White Helmets. We've seen an abundance of evidence of white helmets, people carrying munitions, carrying weapons, supporting the so-called moderate rebels against the Syrian state, staging attacks, using child actors and actresses. We've seen it as plain as the nose on the end of your face. But of course you won't get anything from the BBC, you won't get anything from Sky News today. Bizarrely, Sky News, at least until 4 o'clock anyway, just didn't mention the story. And you're not going to believe it. They had a guy from Doctors Without Borders, or some group like that, Médecins Sans Frontières, some group like that, who knew this guy, James Lemaizière. But they didn't ask him about the death of James Lemaizière. Incredibly, on Sky News this afternoon, he just didn't want to mention it. Advocating partitioning Syria, staging attacks, carrying weapons, supplying them to moderate rebels. All the evidence is there that the White Helmets is not a civil defence group. It just isn't. Mad, right? 19 minutes past the hour. And that's what I can prove. You know? That's what I can prove. And I can prove that because, again, there's an abundance of footage taken by genuinely independent people. Right? Not some of the heroes of the truth or industrial complex now, but genuine journalists. And that information has been spread on liveleak.com, on other websites as well. RT has run some of it. White Helmets, not some benevolent, nice group funded by humanitarians. Something far more sinister indeed. And that is my opinion, and I can support it with a lot of facts. In fact, if I was doing a TV show right now, I'd have a lot of evidence that I could put on screen for you to see. Okay. That's a term that's going to be it's already in the dictionary, by the way. Suicided, past tense, past participle, suicided, intentionally kill oneself. She suicided in a very ugly manner. But suicided, we use it in the third person, don't we? A third party suicided, generally working on behalf of the Clintons or somebody like that, suicided a person, make it look like they committed suicide. Somebody beat the piss out of this guy and threw him off a building. Would be my guess, but I have no proof of that. That would be my guess, but I'll tell you I have no proof because I'm responsible. Okay? Watch the Truth or Industrial Complex talking about James Lemaizière. Watch how they add 2 and 2 together and make 7 and totally discredit independent journalism. I suspect he was murdered, but I have no evidence of it whatsoever. Why would he be murdered, you ask? Well, because, having overseen everything I discussed, the White Helmets funneling arms to so-called moderate rebels, staging attacks, using child actors, the guy's a liability, I would say. He's a liability. There's an old saying, isn't there? Dead men tell no tales. That's why people get suicided. Remembrance Sunday has become a crazy religious ritual which wrongly turns soldiers into either victims or heroes. Who said that? Well, the television historian David Starkey said it. He was speaking with Christopher Hope from The Telegraph. And Christopher Hope presents Chopper's Election Podcast. It's a new podcast. If you read The Telegraph, you can access it. So Starkey, the well-known television historian, said Remembrance Sunday is a crazy religious ritual. He said that acts of remembrance had become that very thing. It's become abstracted from reality. This is what we call poppy fascism. We're suffering from it. The absolute requirement to do it. And you can hear a little bit of it here. David Starkey with Christopher Hope and Chopper's Election Podcast.
It's become a quasi-religious ritual. It's become abstracted from reality. It also is there is what we call poppy fascism. We're both suffering from it. The absolute requirement to do it, and it's also associated again with something else. We're turning soldiers into either victims or heroes. And the two sort of uneasily shift round each other. They're neither. Say if you have mass war and conscription, today's soldiers are volunteers. They are doing it usually because they like it and they get tremendously excited about it, and many of them just enjoy killing. And that's very useful. But again, you see, we don't want to admit any of those things. They don't go with the cosy suburb. They really don't. They are non-cosy thoughts. So we have to put it with this great deal of lipstick and varnish and scent over it. And it applies, again, you see, I think this applies to so much of our public life. There is this refusal to call things by their proper names. There's a refusal even to address the fundamentals of a notion of the national interest. To talk about the national interest now is the equivalent of farting in public.
Farting in public, I like that. To talk of the national interest now is the equivalent of farting in public. In other words, Twitter will destroy you. You can't have nationalist feelings anymore. Or you're not a good person. You must be some sort of bigot if you have a nationalist outlook. Yeah, it's good thought-provoking, provocative stuff by David Starkey there. Lots of things Starkey has said over the years I could take issue with, but I found this particularly interesting. On the theme of being destroyed by Twitter, here he is again, David Starkey, talking about racism and climate change media and old Greta or young Greta Thunberg.
Do you think in a sense that political beliefs fill the space left by religion? In our modern discourse.
The passion about them does. The passion about them does. I think this is particularly true on the left. That you know, the belief in racism, belief in ecology.
What do you mean belief in racism? What does that mean?
In racism as the absolute test of moral failure. What you've done, racism now becomes the equivalent of original sin. And also the way that the left pursues language. It behaves, you know, like a grand inquisitor. If you use minutely the wrong word, you are burned alive on Twitter. That's a form of religious passion. Similarly, look at the role of Greta Thunberg, whatever she's called. The Middle Ages is filled with child saints and intelligent adult people like Michael Gove prostrating themselves before them. God speaks through the voice, you know, through the mouths of babes and sucklings. The voice speaks, and it is frankly mad.
Do you think that Greta Thunberg is a cynical?
I don't think she's cynical at all.
No,
I think she's childish and silly, and adults, which should still exist, are fools for treating her seriously.
Yes, good man. Very interesting. I love guys like that. I love eloquent speakers with a lovely turn of phrase. I'm very envious sometimes. Lovely turn of phrase there. He said something which I found very interesting there, and I don't know if I've skipped up because I should have dragged it out. Have a listen here. They're talking about racism.
About them does. I think this is particularly true on the left. That you know, the belief in racism, belief in ecology.
What do you mean belief in racism? What does that mean?
This is good. Now he talks about racism and he juxtaposes it with original sin. Now, us Catholic children, we were brought up to believe that we were born with the original sin of Adam for eating the apple, that we were born guilty. You were born sinful. I know it's lunacy. This is what we were taught to believe. And he has a lovely turn of phrase here.
What does that mean?
In racism as the absolute test of moral failure. What you've done, racism now becomes the equivalent of original sin.
The equivalent of original sin, meaning that we're all born racist. And that is, of course, what the lunatic progressive left, which has nothing in common with socialism, that is what they are trying to assert and program into people. That, I mean, I was listening to Radio 5 Live this morning. There was a woman on there who's a big HR chief in a very big corporation. And she talked about how in the retail business, BAME workers are very vulnerable. That's black, Asian, minority, ethnic workers are very vulnerable, she said. And she was talking about unconscious bias. You know, it's an old boys network in the retail world, an old boys network. And they don't like minorities. They've got them working on the shop floor, stacking shelves and working on the tills. And those poor BAME employees, they don't get to rise through the ranks of the organisation, she said. And all of this old jazz. Nonsense now. But she talked about unconscious bias. And that's what the progressive left, which is not socialism, that's what they want you to believe. That whether you like it or not, if you're white, you've got some sort of original sin. You are racist whether or not you believe you are. Yeah. Let's finish with this. Mark Bajerski is standing by. Mark will be with me in 5 or 6 minutes' time, and then we'll have a good long chat with Mark. Check out markbajerski.com. loads of time for Mark, and I'm delighted he's back on the programme. Love this Hey Jew-gate. Hey Jew-gate. I've been following this because it just makes me laugh. Because there are no depths to which this nonsense won't sink. This crap. This is about the prospective Labour election candidate Dan Carden. He's alleged to have been on a Jolly Boys outing to Cheltenham races. Then in a sing-song on the bus, he's alleged to have sang Hey Jew instead of Hey Jude. Did he? Is there a recording? I don't know, I haven't seen one or heard one yet. His mate Peter Dowd, who's also a Labour candidate, was on Talk Radio with Julia Hartley-Brewer, and Peter Dowd was there to defend Dan Carden. Did he do it? Did he do it? Did he do it?
Well, Dan Carden has completely and utterly categorically denied that's what happened. I've got no reason not to believe what Dan Carden said. And
there are quite a lot of people who claim that they were witnesses to it.
There are lots of people who claim that it didn't happen. Look, as far as I'm concerned, we're at a general election where every single item is being chucked at the Labour Party, which would try to slay us. Why weren't these things brought out soon? If these matters were so important, and they are important, why weren't they brought up before? Why weren't they tackled? Why weren't they addressed and publicised before? It's strange, isn't it?
Well, you know why, don't you? You know a lot of these people, they sit on these things until there's a general election. That's what...
Touche, Julia. Well, they're wretched then, because if it did happen that he was singing anti-Jewish songs on a bus, but they kept hold of it for months until an election, they're as bad as him, really.
But all sides do.
Well, yes, but that's the point. If these are so crucial and so important to the political future of the country and the individuals' political views, why aren't they brought out at the time? And it just sounds like a terrible hypocrisy to be saying these are very important. Oh, by the way, we sat on them for 6 or 10 or 12 or 15 or 18 months, or God knows when it was supposed to have been.
Yeah, I was playfully this morning joking about a competition, about a postal competition. It seems that some people have no sense of humour whatsoever. After I was criticising the guy, because if he was singing Hey Jew, he's an arsehole. He's obviously got some problem with Jewish people, and he should own up to it and own it. And that's what I stand by that. But after that, I was joking about a postal competition. Some people thought I was serious. They've been criticising me. I said, I want you to write a song, an anti-Jewish song, to the tune of Hey Jude. Send it in, and the winner will get a 25-year-old Nissan Micra with 275,000 miles on it. I tried to write one myself, but because I'm not anti-Jewish, I could only get 4 lines. My song was something along the lines of, Hey Jew, don't be so sad. I can't even do it now. What was it? Hey Jew, don't be so sad. I just like the Arabs better. Do you like that? Hey Jew, don't be so sad. I just like the Arabs better. I couldn't come up with anything else. Do you know why? Because I'm a feckin' Egypt. I'm a proper arsehole. It's the Big Baldy Irish Gammon live on Monday, November the 11th, 2019. Welcome to the Richie Allen Show. There is nothing like it in the world. This is Bachman Turner Overdrive. Mark Bajerski next. Bachman Turner Overdrive on the Richie Allen Show. 26 minutes to the top of the hour. You ain't seen nothing yet. Gotta love it. Freezing cold in Manchester, in Salford, in Eccles, in Swinton. But it's warm where we're off to now, because we're off to southern Spain and the Costa del Sol. And a great friend of ours, one of the nicest things about doing this gig was meeting my guest today, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. He's a brilliant man. He founded the Pure Energy Healing Academy in Mijas Pueblo in Spain, and it's been helping people and working with people and educating people now for some years. He's an author as well, written a brilliant book, The Accidental Psychic. I'll tweet out a link to that. He was kind enough to send us a copy of that a few years ago, and it's a terrific read. You can find out all you need to know about him at markbajerski.com. That's markbajerski.com. And let's just welcome him back to the show. Always a pleasure. How you doing, my friend? I know you've just recently got back to Mijas. You've been in Bali for a while as well. How are things?
Oh, hi, guys. So nice to be here today. I'm excited and I've got butterflies, Richard.
Butterflies, my backside. How could you have butterflies? I'll give you a laugh today. I always make a couple of notes about my guests, even people I've known for, a relatively long period of time like yourself. I make a couple of little notes for myself. And I'm thinking of you, and I'm writing a couple of notes, and I'm not looking at my computer screen, and I'm listening to the news. The next thing I look at what I've typed, and I've typed Mark mentioned international, of course, healer of hearts. I write international man of mystery. I must have been channeling Austin Powers or something. I was channeling Austin Powers, international man of mystery. You sound in great voice, and you sound in great form. Life is treating you good.
Well, Richard, to be honest, life's what you make it. I can either, spend my time and effort focused on all the negative, all the sad things, all the cesspit of life, or I can make that change. Basically up to me, really. Nobody else can make that change for me. So many people are living in blame now. So many people are just stagnant, lost, sad, upset, and they're waiting for the next guru to help them, the next person to pull them out of the problem. And unfortunately, that isn't the way it is. 2020 is coming up now, and it's a year where people have to now realize that the only person they should be bowing to is in that mirror, looking at themselves and realizing they're the only ones who can do this. But more importantly, they have to realize that they are here for a reason, and they are more powerful than they can imagine. So they have to break free from this system that suppresses us all. And once we realize the system tries to suppress each and every one of us in every single aspect of the system as it works, when we break free from that, when we pull away from that, when we step out of that conditioning that we've all been conditioned, programmed, we then realize that the only person who can help us is ourselves. And when we then take our power back, that's when we start looking at the positive. That's when we start seeing the good. And actually, we realize that there's a lot of beautiful people out there who, once they join hands and come together, have the power to dismantle the system and change the whole of the world. That's all it takes, Richard, and that's what I'm doing.
Brilliant. 2020, we'll come back to that. I'm interested in numerology. I'm not going to put you on the spot. I don't know if it's something that you spend a lot of time on. I know you'll be aware of it, but numbers are very interesting. Before we get into 2020, we're also going to talk about psychic attack. I do every 2 or 3 weeks, I do a phone in. And one of the things that has been very apparent during the phone in is that lately I've had some callers on with really interesting things to say, but during the course of the conversation they've dropped in that they're struggling with the information that they're hearing. In other words, that if they break the shackles of the mainstream media, the organizations that spend a lot of time keeping people in fear and beating them down with lies and propaganda, but when they start looking at alternative media outlets, they actually find that it really, really gets them down. It gets them into a very bad place, starting to understand what's behind some of the terrible things that happen in the world, how dark it is. And that's an interesting one. I know we've touched on this in the past, not the last time we spoke, and I know it might be something that you might be bored of being questioned about, but when people realise that everything is not as it appears, that realisation itself, Mark, can be very difficult for people. I've noticed that. And in the phone-in shows lately, people have said it's very hard, Richie, coming to terms with this. What do you think?
I totally understand, and I think we all have to go through that. I think it's part of the course of our awakening, the kind of elephant in the room. And once we see that, we go through a kind of depression or sadness because we trusted and believed in the people that we thought cared about us and wanted to help us, our governments, the churches, the Pope, and all of these people that we looked up to, and even the gurus are now not as what we thought they were. Many of them have done terrible things, and it really is brilliant because we come to terms with that. None of these people can help us, and I think that's what it is. I think we've been programmed to look up to people and to make life easy for ourselves. So then we basically put it in the hands of other people, politicians, law, everything like that, solicitors. And actually, when we come to terms and we realize that the law sometimes doesn't help, solicitors only take plenty of money, and we start realizing, wow, this is really challenging, But that's the awakening. It's fantastic. Once we get over that, then what else do we do? Well, for me, I need to now get up and brush myself off and say, what can I do to make a difference in my life? Because nobody else, which I believe those people were there to help me, ain't going to help me no more. So what do I do? So it's a bit like unlearning what we were taught from children to now. And you know what? There's nothing more beautiful than finding your own power. But you can't do that if you're still hanging on to the belief system that, Labour, Conservative, one of these guys is going to bail you out. You realise these people are all the same. You vote for the same person, no matter who they are and who, you know this, Richie. And I think this is the awakening. I think it's a really positive thing that people are down and feel bad, because at least once you've fallen down, you can't get any lower. The only way then is back up. And it's up to you then to show your true power of who you are. And you know what, Richie? Every single person listening to this now, you are as important in this world to make the change, to heal this world, than any single person that you used to look up to. And those days are gone. The bread and circuses, they've gone. People now are realizing that we just don't need that anymore, and we turn away from the Kim Kardashians and all the designer jewelry and handbags. We turn away from all that because it's meaningless, all of it. And then we start to look at ourselves. Now that's when it becomes really challenging. Looking at yourself. Who am I and why I am here? What is the reason for me being here? And the only way you can come up with an answer to that is being in the stillness. And the problem, Richie, is being in the stillness is most people are not used to it, because they're used to being a dog chasing their tail.
Course, yeah.
And that's what the system does. It doesn't want you to think in and feel and listen to your higher self. It wants you to obey and just pay your mortgage and be a good little boy and just work enough hours so that you don't rock any boats to affect the system. So there's massive shifts now, Richard. People are awakening everywhere, and I'm seeing it all over, and it's beautiful. And I said to you in the last show that the scales have tipped. We are now becoming more awake and aware, and the darkness is struggling to actually put out their lies, because we are seeing those lies. We're seeing straight through them. And that's what I'm saying is what's really important. When you start to see and feel and know, oh my God, all of this is just an illusion. It's all lies.
Yeah.
Once you start to grasp that, you get your power back, and you become, as I believe, you have intuition, psychic awareness, and you become powerful. So when you say that you feel down and sad and it's overwhelming, I'm smiling, saying, actually, you're now activating your greatest power and gift, because now you're seeing through the lies. So sheeple, which are no longer now. They're waking up. More and more people are waking up, Richard. So it's a beautiful time.
It's a great time to be alive. Do you know what? I bumped into a lady a couple of weeks ago called Kathy. Now she might have contacted you. She heard you not on this program, funny enough, but somewhere else a couple of years ago. She's very sceptical about Mark Bajerski. She was very much I don't know. She was very much like I was, I suppose, at one time. Very much in the physical. If I can see it and if I can taste it, Mark, it's real. But if I can't, it mustn't be real. She was very much like that. I suppose you could say she was a flat earther. I'm saying that because it's going to wind up a lot of people now listening to this program, but because I know it will. But
I live on a mountain, Richard, so I can't obviously say it's
you
flat.
Can't say it's flat. Now, Kathy, lovely, bumped in. She said, "I really like Mark Bajerski. When's he coming back on?" I said, "Soon, hopefully, we'll get him back on." She said, "I was very sceptical," and she said, "I heard him on another program. I think you were on a program in Spain, and then she heard you on this program." And she said, "I thought initially Mark was peddling easy answers about me being responsible for myself and about me taking the steps. For me, she said, I thought he was peddling an easy answer. And I said, but he wasn't. And she said, no. Do you know what she started doing, having listened to you? This is a true story now. She started looking for things that were going on in her community. So she started looking at friends of the local parks. She started looking at friends of the local railway enthusiasts, people who keep old railway lines nice and tidy so that people can walk there. And she started, for the first time in a long time, physically interacting with people. Now she's out 3-4 times a week. She's made great friends. She's going to people's houses for lunch. They're coming to hers. She's made friends for life. And she said, I put it down to that challenge laid down by Mark Bajerski about stop waiting for somebody else to make a change for you. You've got to do it. Not an easy answer, Richie, she said. Not an easy answer at all. And she's been watching your YouTube videos on the Mark Bajerski channel on YouTube since then. So that's a nice thing. And I didn't want to say that to you before today. I wanted to say that today. But you're absolutely right. That's how you make a difference. That's a lovely story, and it's totally true, by the way.
That's a beautiful story. And I'm hearing this more and more. I get hundreds of messages throughout the month of people saying, you know what, I took my power back. No one has the power over me. And it's beautiful because people are awakening to their gift and their power, which I've always said, we all have the equal gift and power, maybe slightly different in unique ways, but we all generate an amazing power within us, a gift that can change the world and is changing the world. So the more that awaken, the more the energy grows and it becomes more challenging for the darkness, the system, to suppress us. So it's a beautiful time to live.
Sorry for interrupting you, my friend. Is it fairer to say that if you make a change where you can, because I'm not contradicting you. I totally understand when you say change the world. But do you mean by changing something from negative to very positive, even if it's only in 15 square meters of where you live, that must have an impact on the global energy? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, Richard, it isn't 15 square meters. It's global. It's universal. You can feel people from thousands and thousands of miles away when you activate this beautiful, powerful energy. And how I know this is because if I've done something that has been really, really evident and positive, people have told me that they felt that energy from miles away. Now, how did they know that? Because they had a thought or a feeling about me for no given reason. Yeah. Why is it that I did something so amazing one day and then all of a sudden I'm getting loads of messages in that day more than any other time? It is because you generate an energy and people feel that energy. So we can't limit ourselves to thinking that, oh, you know, you make a room happy if you tell a joke. You know what? When you do good in this world, your energy shifts and changes. When you make a difference, when you care and love and share and hug somebody and do good things, it changes the whole of the world. The vibration raises. And by that, when you raise the vibration of the world, that's when I believe the darkness has a really difficult time to try and bring us back down again. And I think we've tipped the scales. We are now becoming stronger. But people, like anything else, people think, oh my God, everything is so bad. Everything's so wrong. No, you need to see all of this to know that it isn't wrong, because before you never even saw it. Yeah. So now you're seeing all these bad things. What are we going to do? So you have to see the bad to make the change. You have to see the lies, the darkness to be able to make that change. And so many millions of people are now making the change in many different ways, Richard, many different ways. So I believe that it's a great time to be living. I'm so glad I'm in this at this moment right now. And I tell everybody, if you are alive in 2020, you are a special soul and you have been brought here for a reason. And I believe this is the tipping of not just the scale, but the positive energy that is going to make the change to clear things that we didn't believe we were able to clear.
This is important now, isn't it? This is hugely important because we believe, some of us believe, it doesn't mean we're right, but we believe there's a lot of evidence that the darkness, the dark energies, the elite, we call them, they've got some terrible things planned for people in the next 10 years. So 2020 through to 2030. They have some bad things planned. Now, you think we're at the precipice of something amazing. Can I ask you a little bit about... Now, tell me to go and bugger off, because we don't expect you to be an expert on everything. And I know you don't claim to be an expert on everything. But numerology and numbers, because some lovely men and women that I've gotten to know for 10 or so years doing programs like this, they believe that numbers are very powerful. They're very powerful for the elite. But they're also very powerful for us. So is 2020, is that some strong number, Mark? Is there something significant about that number?
Not in my
understanding.
So? Not in my understanding of numbers. I can't even comment on that because I know nothing about numbers. What I can tell you, though, is the feeling that I have from day to day. And like anything else, if I just give you an idea, if I give you a crystal to hold and you all of a sudden have a terrible pain in your head and you say, my God, Mark, 2 minutes ago I was fine. Now I'm just holding this crystal and I've got a severe headache. And you put that crystal back in my hand and say, that's the worst crystal. I never want to touch it again. It gave me a headache. I would say put that crystal back in your hand because it's healing you. It's actually giving you the healing that you need to clear the headache or the issue and the problem. So I see the world like you or me, and I believe this energy is going to be the energy that helps us see the pain and suffering that needs to be cleared. So yes, I agree with what you're saying. I believe that the darkness, as it always has done, has always tried to do damaging and awful things. And I said to you before, Richard, you can't have light and without the darkness. You need them both. But I believe right now is the tipping scale. So the light will be far more powerful than it's ever been. So there will be more people joining hands, Richard. I mean, all you need to do is look and listen to social media and hear all the wonderful things that is happening. And it's down to one vital thing. Community coming together and saying no to the small, insignificant system. And, nurses refusing vaccines, 22,000 of them opting to wear masks. And people from all over the world saying no more to 5G. And everything now we're starting to see that we are being taken notice of. The light workers, the healers, all the people who work in the natural industry who know and have this deep understanding of healing and how to change the world. People are taking notice of them, but not just looking up to them, but they're taking their information and utilizing it in their everyday life.
You've answered a question, by the way. We've had a question or two on Twitter that said, brilliantly positive by Mark, but where is the evidence? Because you started off by saying that it's a great time to be alive. I'm seeing the change. And you've answered the question brilliantly, because one or two people on Twitter are going, lovely, yeah, but I don't see it. But you've just described it. You've just described it perfectly. The world waking up to 5G, people making changes in their own communities about 5G, which is a devastating thing for human health. People standing up to the mandating vaccines. It's out there. Can I just say this before you come back in? I've had this theory for years, and I used to get laughed at. If you get the Daily Mail or the Daily Express today, and you open the newspapers, every single story, except for the sports, is a negative, horrible story. If you go on to dailymail.co.uk now, which is the Daily Mail website, and it's got its most popular stories all the way down the page from the top to the bottom, they're all horrible stories about people getting beaten up outside nightclubs, about somebody getting stabbed, about somebody being robbed. Horrendous stuff, right? And I know, Mark, that there are some amazing things going on, but you never read in the newspapers about wonderful things, do you? Never. There's never any good news. And I've believed since I was very young that this is deliberate because it keeps us in a state of anxiety and depression. Because the more you read that crap, Mark, the more likely you are to feel naked and vulnerable and upset and tired and sick. Am I right?
You've answered your own question.
Yeah.
That is exactly what it is. It's a manipulation of the darkness, keeping us in the dark. But I've just said to you, people have a choice.
Yeah.
So you can either look in that direction and wallow in that self-pity, sadness, fear, or you can say, you know what? I'm choosing now to walk away from that and look for the good in life, see the good things happening, and walk towards people that make you feel how you want to feel. So I can't change anybody to make them feel happy. They have to make that change themselves. So if you want to spend all your day reading social media of all the negative things, then you will be in that negative energy. There's nothing wrong with educating yourself to what's happening. But you know what? Anybody can tell you, any idiot can tell you the world's a bad place and things are wrong. But it takes a genius, a good soul to make the change, to make the world a better place. So who are you? I ask your audience, who are you today? Are you wallowing in the sadness and saying it's all going to go, oh, whoa, whoa? Remember Pompeii, the woman, everything was going to go wrong. This is how it feels to me with a lot of people. And to be honest, I don't have time for that anymore, because my life is about making a difference for me to change the difference for others. So if I'm happy, then around me, people are going to be happy. Who do I connect with? People who are filled with joy and people who are making a difference. When I was in ballet, I was lucky enough to go to a place called the Green School. We were taken around that Green School by a 13-year-old who blew me away, because this school was a school that allows people to be who they are and encourage people to have a voice and to do what they want. And they watch these children and see what their gifts are, and they encourage them in that direction. And I cried all the way around, watching, listening and seeing the amazingness in this world and the change in schooling, because it's really only going to start with our younger generation, to teach them to be their own guru, to believe in themselves, to be entrepreneurial, to be powerful speakers, to be the voice that we need to make the change in the world. But more importantly, we need them to listen to themselves and believe in their own voice. And that's why I really love this school, because the kids were actually standing up and saying what they felt. Well, Richard, were you ever allowed to stand up at school and say what you felt?
No. No chance. Absolutely not, Mark, no.
We were beaten.
Well, no, I couldn't say that now. I know you had to deal with some of that, and it's a terrible thing. I was lucky enough, I just about missed out on that.
Well, I was beaten, Richie, and scolded. Every day I was whacked by the headmaster for standing up and saying, I don't actually believe this. And because I disagreed with the schooling system, I was beaten for it. Well, now I believe there is changes in the world. There are new schools popping up everywhere, which are encouraging children to become their own power, to believe in themselves and to make a difference in the world. And I think that's just another aspect of how this world is changing, because I believe the change will be in the children, the generations. So what do we do? The system, the only way we can get rid of the system is make it obsolete. So I don't buy into the system as much as possible. I don't buy into corporations. I don't buy into anything that I believe is unhealthy for me. And I then share that message with the world. And more people, millions, thousands, hundreds of thousands, are getting it now. They're starting to understand. And you know what, Richard? I've been mocked for 16 years, but now, for the past 2 years, not so much. People are now coming back saying, I'm sorry, mate, I thought you were a crackpot, but actually there is some truth in this. And this energy, and that you were talking about lemons, what an idiot, but actually it works. And you talked about sage, and it works. And, and like now we're talking about smart meters. Cover your smart meter with yellow. So get a yellow bag and put it over your smart meter. Things like this are making a difference and helping. But you know what? Once you've become aware and awake to what's happening around you, then it's up to you, Rich, as the individual, to make the difference.
Too right it is. Few writers. Can I read a few tweets? We've got Mark. It said at the top of the hour, by the way. Got to do my DJ thing, Mark. Got to do my DJ thing. It's the top of the hour. Mark Bajerski is our guest. MarkBajerski.com. Wonderful guy. And the thing about Mark is, independently of Mark, people who had nothing to do with Mark went to the Pure Energy Healing Academy in Mihas, and they came back to me and they gave me the lowdown on that experience. And it was a marvellous, transformative experience for them. Every one of them endorsed it. And I started to get to know Mark then and look into him. Terrific guy. Go to markbajerski.com. You'll find out there about the retreats in Bali. You'll find out about the Pure Energy Healing Academy in Mijas Pueblo, and links to... And you know, Mark puts these videos on YouTube. You know, these are free to air and they're full of interesting, important, sometimes anecdotal, lovely videos with information about things that you can do, practical things that won't cost you anything, that you can do to make even what you might think is a small difference. Like Cassie was telling me 2 weeks ago. You know, I listened to this man, I thought, I don't know. And then she started doing what he was suggesting. She started to make her own changes, simple things, getting out there, meeting people, joining groups, rejoining society, face-to-face conversations with people. Let me read a few tweets before we hear more from Mark. John is in Salford. I mentioned John, friend of mine. Tiny change for me last year, Richie, was to stop funding the BBC. Frightening enough for a law-abiding system, but boy, I no longer get cross when they peddle their lies to me. It's a good feeling. I know it seems trivial, but for me, it's a big decision. It's not trivial. Mark will come back on that in a moment. Hi to David Stanford, who says, maybe the source has put us here deliberately at this time for either a lesson or to do something about it. As Jordan Maxwell has said in the past, this is the end times. But the end doesn't necessarily mean that the world is going to end. Mark might come in on that in a minute. Charlie tweets, you see when you come on, this is what happens. If I don't read the tweets, I'll be murdered later on for, not literally murdered, but they'll be giving me stick later on. Charlie tweets, Mark and Richie, I've spent so many years being depressed and feeling hopeless, but actually Twitter has given me hope that the awakening has snowballed faster than the sinister agenda. Very good. That's a very nice thing. Mark said something similar earlier on. The awakening is happening quicker than the sinister agenda is doing its stuff. Hi to Steve James, who says, Richie, as someone who spends a fair amount of time on social media, I can see an awakening in many areas, so I agree with Mark. We are on the cusp of astuteness. Gail tweets, I know you'll come back in a second, I better read some of these. Mark has a beautiful energy. Yes, I came across people with big egos when I was learning. I did let it get to me, but after a while I learned to ignore it and carried on. Patricia Braunschweiler sends her love and best wishes to you. She was at the Academy. I know you know who Patricia is, Mark. Sends her love to you there. Hi to Sean as well. Sean says, has Mark any advice for someone like me who lived with chronic crippling pain? Thanks. Sean says we'll come back to that. And Penny says, I love listening to Mark. His positivity shines through the radio there. Lovely messages. Miriam Holland O'Brien, I think it might be. Is it Miriam Holland O'Brien? How you, Miriam? I love hearing Mark. A pure inspiration. There you are now. Back to you. I'll take a breath. Loads of lovely messages.
That's so beautiful. All of those messages are so positive, Richie. I remember when I first came on your show. Do you remember all the negative messages?
I remember. I do indeed. Yeah.
So you can see how people are actually now opening up to the possibility of there's more to life than eating, drinking, sleeping and working. There is a magic out there and it can be touched. It can be felt. The signs are there, but most of us choose to ignore them because we're frightened of them. But actually, there is miracles happening every moment and every day. The synchronicities are becoming more and more evident. People now are seeing, even on social media, the energy of what I believe is spirit or the magic of the universe is showing us what we need to see. So we choose to either see it or ignore it. We choose to see the positive rather than the negative. And we are always shown an equal amount. But you know what? It's up to us to take from both dark and light and make good and make the change. And I think that's what we're all doing. I love to say to Patricia, thank you so much. She was an absolute joy to have at the Academy. And believe it or not, Richie, your show has made a huge impact on the Pure Energy Healing Academy. We've had so many people who have come here who have now gone out there and are now practicing healers, and they're healing so many hundreds, if not thousands of people every single day. So we are making a massive difference. They're Reiki masters, they're Reiki teachers, they're pranic healers. There's many different forms of healing techniques out there that people are turning away from the medicine, the medical, the pharmaceutical, and they're taking natural, beautiful natural paths that they are now realizing that medicine doesn't ever cure the root cause. It only suppresses and gets rid of something, but it keeps reoccurring. And from that, you get even more ill from what you take. Therefore, people are sick of it, and they're looking now for new natural ways of healing. And Richard, we are healing. The world is healing in a positive way. More people are eating natural foods, which are fruit and vegetables. They're taking herbs. They're looking at roots. They're looking at natural oils. People are now looking at what really is the cure of life. And we were born in this world, and you were born in your little place in Ireland. And in Ireland, there are certain foods, certain plants, certain trees that are healing for you there. So the food that you eat, which is grown through the year, is what we should be eating. A lot of us now are eating kind of like foods that are from different parts of the world. So people are learning more and more that we need to go back to the basic eating of what Mother Nature gives us for where we were born. So
wow.
there's a beautiful ancient wisdom which is lost, but is now returning, and the power of the natural vaccines, which are, the turmeric, the ginger, you mix it together, you drink that, you drink fresh lemon juice every morning, you drink celery juice, you drink nature's gift. Mother Nature gives us everything that we need to heal our body. If you're in chronic pain, it's probably because of all what we were given as children or injected into us. Who knows? But if you want to cure yourself from all of these things, you've got to go back to nature. You've got to go back to herbs, to roots, to all the natural foods, clearing away sugars from your body. And most importantly, which many people forget, is your environment. You need to have a healthy environment. It is known, and it's always been known, that if you are in a state of negativity, your immune system is low. That is factual truth. Anybody knows this. So when you are in negativity, when you are in fear, sadness, worry, anger, you cannot heal at that point. So one of the things that I try and teach people to do is find your happiness again, no matter how. So you need to look at what's going on in your life. You need to look in the mirror and say, why do I feel like this? Could it be that there is somebody in my life who is causing me suffering? Is there something I can do to change that? Can I change my thinking thought process from not being upset over a family member? And by doing that, you start to rise above that low energy, which makes you poorly, and it can turn to physical issue, which it often does. So a lot of people have backache, shoulder ache, eyes are weak, headaches, stomach issues, and they're all normally related to people that causes issue or our environment, our job. So I try and share a message that, you know what, if you want to change your life, you need to look at your life and you need to be honest. And many people are doing that now. And I get so many messages, Richie, of people saying, you know what, Mark, I took the decision. I left my work, or I left a relationship which was abusive, and their lives have changed because there's so much more to live for. There's so much magic out there, but we get so depressed, we get so sad, we get so upset. So what I do is I try and tell people, get yourself a bunch of lemons and put them in your house. If any of them lemons go off, sage the house and then sage yourself. And you know what? To sage yourself for 20 minutes can change your whole day. To sage your house can change your house and the whole of the people living in that house and the energy. And then all of a sudden you start to feel healthier. You start to feel better. That energy then starts to heal you. And then the process of feeling good starts to happen.
When you first talked about that on this program, a lot of people tried it out, a lot. And we've got a healthy listenership here in the UK and abroad. We had a lot, I know you had a lot of emails. I had a lot of emails from people who said that they were sceptical. And I was really glad that they were sceptical. You know, there's no placebo effect here. They didn't believe it would work. And then it did. You know, they were coming back to me, I didn't believe it, but I said I'd give it a go anyway. And that was really important. Because I wanted to ask you a question on that. I hear you loud and clear about, you know, the negative influence on your life and walking away from it. We do, of course, have family members that we can't walk away from. So I'm wondering, the establishment, the elite, whatever it is, the system, wants us to be more vain and more inward looking and more narcissistic. It wants us to always believe that we are right. It wants us to be offended at people, and it wants us to fight and argue. But I hear you when you say about family members and, you know, raising your vibration. If somebody you love is, you know, behaving in a way that upsets you or impositions you, well, try and kind of rise above it and remember first and foremost that you love them, that they're vitally important to you, and let them away with it. It's not the end of the bloody world if you let them away with it. You're not going to die. Nobody wins, nobody loses. But it might do a lot to elevate you, Mark. I don't know. It's just an interesting thought, that.
It really is one of the most important topics of conversation and most asked question to me. I'm living with my mother. I need to look after her, but, you know, I can't just walk away from her. That is not what I mean when I say walk away. Literally, you don't walk away from family members if you have to help them. What I mean to say is that you need to look at yourself and ask yourself why you're feeling this way, why you get angry, why you get triggered by certain feelings and thoughts. Because say your mother gets angry with you. Well, I told you the story about my father. My father, I couldn't do anything right for my father. And I walked out of that door crying, sad, upset, angry, because he would never recognize the love and the kindness I gave him. Do you know, Richie, one day the penny dropped and I realized in the van, I was laughing. I got in the van and started laughing for the first time. And I thought, oh my God, I realized my dad will never change. That's who he is. And I've been beating myself up all these years. My God, what an idiot. So at that point, I made the change. So I walked away from the anger, the fear, the worries, the what ifs, and why doesn't he love me? And I changed it for the realization that, you know what, I'm a lucky bugger because I'm not like my dad. I'm more loving and more kind. And I'm so pleased that he showed me that I have grown stronger and that I am a different model, that I broke the model.
But he also has a place in the world. He does. This is the thing, and I've struggled to come to terms with that, and I think I'm getting there slowly. But it's not about me. It's not about me. But I'm beginning to start to understand that people are sometimes the way they are, and you know it doesn't make you any better. You might be healthy, and that's what you're saying. See, I hear what you're saying. You're saying you'll be healthier. You'll be healthier and you'll be more in tune with the universe. But you're not saying that you're better than your dad. You're not saying that. That's an amazing thing. I'm hearing you loud and clear there.
Absolutely. I mean, my dad was my measuring stick. And I was so proud of myself that from my two children. I never raised a hand to them, and I love them with all my heart. And I tell them every day, I'm proud of them. My dad didn't have that energy in him to say it, but doesn't mean he didn't love me in his own way.
Yeah.
So I learned to see and understand his limitation of love. But that doesn't mean his love for me when he kissed me on the forehead once when I was asleep, that wasn't as powerful as my hugs and kisses and my loving messages to my children every day. So I learned to change the chip of blame, of anger, because we so often blame our parents. And that is the biggest mistake, that we live in the cesspit and the wallowing of why our mother and father treat me this way. And that is a real challenge that we need to overcome.
Well, the system wants us to do that. I've been dying to ask you a question since the start of the programme this evening, because you mentioned Nico and China, who and I did meet Nico, of course, in Manchester, didn't I? I met him for a minute, didn't I? Didn't I meet him? Yeah, lovely, real gentleman, got a real great vibe off him. I've never met China, but I've seen her on videos on social media when I was on Facebook. So here's a question. Now, I'm really segueing into something different. You don't have to answer this, but I'll ask you anyway. If so we're into 2019 now. If Nico and China were 4 or 5 or 6 years of age, I'm guessing that the Mark Bajerski of 2019, knowing what's happening in schools now, where children are being, I don't want to say browbeaten, but they're being asked to think about things and consider things that maybe shouldn't be asked of children. You might have a different approach now with schools, I would imagine, with Nico and China. If you don't want to go down that road now, we'll talk about something else, but I just think it's an interesting one, because they've grown up, they're doing very well, they're obviously lovely, you're very proud of them, but these are difficult times for parents with 5-6-year-old kids, right? What would you think now?
Yeah, I mean, I know many parents with children at that age, and lots of people now are opting to homeschool, which is a challenge for most people because they can't. They have to be the breadwinners and pay for the mortgage and food. So what's happening is a lot of people now are basically coming together, mothers and fathers, they're all joining together with friends, and they're all trying to make the changes. You know what, Richie? A lot of teachers actually don't like teaching anymore because of the red tape. They actually hate it. And I know many teachers, many nurses, many people in the industry are now saying no more. So what's happening is a push by the elite, by the ones who are wanting to make everybody so confused, Richard, that you can see quite clearly, or I can, and I hope your listeners can, that all of these things about transgender, don't call me this, don't call me that, I believe it's to confuse humanity so that they don't know who the hell they are. And when you can do that to a child, when you can confuse people, that's how you keep them suppressed. So it's a very clever manipulation, and they're starting at a very young age. But you know what, Richard? It isn't working, because we're starting to realize what's going on. More and more people are coming together, and they are making that change. So I think that we're in a good time where we're not going to have it anymore. Do you know what? I asked myself this question, Richard. Who runs our world? And I asked the question, it's government. Okay, they are the ones in control, government. So I asked you this before. What is government? Is it a building? No. Is it people in the building? No. So what is it? It's a fictitious illusion. And we are feeding that illusion by giving it power. And once we realize that government is nothing, it's only created just like money out of thin air, then we will dismantle it. So the power of the people is the answer. So my feeling is the more people who come together and say no, the more the light will shine and the darkness will disappear. And I think there's so many people out there now getting this. They're really getting it. And it's becoming more evident that we are now not standing for the BS that is on all social media, all platforms, but we're seeing through it. We went through a stage of everything, not knowing the truth with anything. But that's a good thing, because now we're starting to really think for ourselves. At one time, everybody was posting anything. Now we're being more vigilant. We're now looking into things. We're now really taking our time and doing the studying to see what's right and what's wrong. So there is a shift. We're actually becoming our teachers now. We're actually becoming the teacher, and we're actually looking and studying. And I think we need that. And I think so many people out there are really doing a great job. So for me, I'm really excited about life. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I think that the scales have tipped. You can say what you want, and the social media and mainstream media, which I don't even look at, I chucked the TV away 16 years ago. They can say what they want. I know what the truth is. I walk out my door. I listen to people. I can see what's going on all over the world. And there is a revolution in love and power. And we are winning. You
don't need to be told what to think by some bloke in a suit, in a Gucci or an Armani suit on television. Tell you what we'll do now. I want to play Louis Armstrong's We Have All the Time in the World. Let's play that. It'll give me a chance to grab some water. It's a lovely tune anyway. It segues. It doesn't segue. It mirrors what you've been talking about. When we come back, then we'll talk about psychic attacks. A very interesting video on Mark's YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com, look for Mark Bajerski. You'll find a channel well in excess of 125,000 subscribers, millions of views. Positivity, but positivity with impact. You know, genuine solutions to everyday problems from Mark on the Mark Bajerski YouTube channel. And Mark's website is markbajerski.com. That's where you can find out about the Pure Energy Healing Academy. That's where you will find out about the retreats to Bali and the other things Mark is involving himself in as well. So we'll take 2.5 minutes. I'll grab some water. I've not got any here, you see. I've got to go and get some. And we'll have a listen to Louis Armstrong, Mark. So Mark Bajerski is going to stay with us. This is great stuff. Taking a wee breather, and I will read some more of your tweets as well when we come back. This is the Richie Allen Show, live on richieallen.co.uk, multiple platforms. Louis Armstrong, Mark Bajerski is going to stay with us for another 25 minutes or thereabouts. markbajerski.com is the website. Really good to be doing this, especially, I think, on a Monday. I don't say that either for laughs. I'm not being glib. I really do believe that. Mark, thanks for staying with us, by the way. Great to have you back on the programme. It's flying by. So it is.
It always does.
Doesn't it? It just disappears, doesn't it? Like that, like the blink of an eye. But look, loads of lovely messages. I'll tell you what, some lovely messages there. Before you talk about psychic energy, just to Sean's comment about chronic pain, I'm guessing you'd probably need to know a little bit more. But is there any general thing, anything that he could drink or take or think about for chronic pain? What do you think?
Okay, well, first of all, I need to know a little bit about his background. So it's like, it's a really tough question. But what I can do is, what I can promise you is if he gives, it's more, this is too personal to, for him to share all the information. But let's talk after. You give me the information and I promise to help. And give some tips and advice. I'm not promising anything, but I promise to do my best.
Brilliant, mate. That's lovely. I really appreciate that. Now, psychic attacks. You made you put a video on. Well, you made I live stream, but you sometimes live stream. Sometimes you make the films and you put them on YouTube. This is very interesting. How would you describe it? What is a psychic attack exactly?
Okay, well, a lot of people make the mistake and believe a psychic attack is not really what it is. My personal feeling, it's very, very deep, and the kind of rabbit hole goes deep. Psychic attacks can happen in many different forms, and if I start to talk about the more deeper psychic attacks, then I don't know if people are going to really understand and want to understand it. But there are times that when we open up, when we are in a state of openness, that the energy around us that could have what I believe is spirit trapped in between two worlds. So if I go into detail, let's say, Richard, that there was a lovely man, and this man struggled really, really badly with a certain drug that he took every day, or alcohol, or something that he did every day that caused his death. Let's say that I believe that once we transition, once we go into what I believe the light, you have a choice whether you go into that light. Now, here's the thing. There's going to be a lot of people screaming and shouting, saying, it's a lie. It's a lie. The light only brings you back again. It's deceitful. It's all this. So it's a really deep subject, Richard. So my understanding over 16 years of working in many different hundreds and hundreds of houses, clearing spirit trapped in between two worlds, which I call spirit in denial. So you imagine, Richard, if you were an abusive person, if you hurt somebody and you hurt many people, you did really bad things. At the moment you're about to move into the light, you see everything that happens to you within images, pictures, and you look at your life, which takes a second, but can actually there's no such thing as time. But what we see is our life and the reflection of everything that's happened to us. We look at ourselves, at what we've done, and we can either embrace that and accept it, we can turn away from it, and we can end up, if we turn away from it because of one thing or another, we're ashamed or we're frightened because of what we've done. We then enter into what I call spirit trapped in between two worlds. So they haven't entered into the light. So, which you would call sometimes ghosts. So I've gone into houses where many mirrors just smash all the time, or something happens to a family or a child and the taps get turned on, or whatever, something weird happens and they can't explain what it is. I'll go into that house and more often than not, there's nothing there, but there are times when there is spirit trapped in between two worlds. So I sage and clear that. But the attack happens when that particular soul attaches to somebody of this world, a human form. And it happens, and they're called psychic attacks. So when I first started this work, Richie, I didn't really understand it. I was excited because I knew many things were happening around me. Furniture moving, lights turning on and off, weird things that I couldn't explain. And I've got to admit, I was excited because I realized that there's more to life than what I believed. So as this was happening, all of a sudden, one night, I started getting angry and more angry. And I said to my former wife a few swear words, and she said, what are you doing? We don't swear. Why are you swearing? I said, I don't know. And I started getting angry. And all of a sudden I started fighting with myself. And I actually started having a conversation with myself, which I thought was myself. But I soon realized that it wasn't just me. There was something within me fighting back. I started getting a pain in my liver and kidneys. And I started getting very aggressive. Now, Richie, I don't get aggressive. I don't swear, very rarely. So I knew there was something wrong, and I didn't know what it was. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, I went upstairs and I started saying, what is this? And I started asking questions. And all of a sudden, I started to receive information, not voices, but feelings. I ran back downstairs at 3 o'clock in the morning and I said to Susie, your mum has just come on holiday. She come with somebody, which I know who it was, but I wasn't sure who her son was. I said, did her son pass away? And she went, yes. I said, was he the bad lad who did really bad things and drunk and was an alcoholic and went to prison? Yes. I said, oh my God, that's why. This is the guy. He's inside me.
Wow, Mark.
This guy wanted me to go and speak to this woman and scream and shout at her. Now imagine this, Richard, an auctioneer just starting out in life to try and understand all of this.
Yeah, coming to terms with it, yeah.
I was literally thinking I was going insane. I made a phone call to a woman called Shirley, who was one of my mentors at that time, who had only just started seeing that. She said, you've got some gifts, Mark. And I said, what? What gifts? I'm an auctioneer. No, I can feel it. I went, oh, whatever. I've heard it all before. So she said, come over. This was at 6 and 7 in the morning. I went over. She saged me with 3 other women, saged me down, said some prayers. It took half an hour to an hour, but then it was gone. I remember walking outside her door, sitting on the veranda, and I looked at her and I said, I don't want this. I'm finished. And she said to me, Mark, this is a very important part in your life. And I said, why? Why do I have to go through this? This was the most awful thing. I was out of control. I was in fear. I thought I was going crazy. She said, Mark, how can you ever help anybody if you hadn't have gone through this? Now you know what it is. You now know how to help others. And she was so right. And from that moment on, Richie, I have helped people who have had these attacks, but they're very rare, Richie. And one of the attacks that I most speak about was a beautiful man, 6'6", who was one of the CEOs for Schwarzkopf. And I told you, I think about it before. And when I went to his home and he laid down on my healing bed, as I was giving him healing, I was thrown across the room. Attached to him was a monk. And when I'd finished the healing session, I went back and continued to heal him until it was gone. It was the most interesting thing because this guy doesn't believe in any of this nonsense, but he knew there was something that was attached to him. And afterwards, when we all sat down for something to eat, a friend came around and said, oh my God, you look different. And he said, I feel different. And that was the moment he believed in the work that I did. But Richie, it's hard for people to understand if they've never been through it.
If they've never been through it. Can I share this with you very briefly? Years ago in London, talking about this very subject with David Icke, and he said to me, you don't believe in any of this, he said, do you? And I said, no, I said, that's unfair. I said, it's unfair. I said, I just don't know. And he talked to me about it, and he put me in touch with somebody who talked to me about it. And he was fascinated by one aspect of this alcohol dependency. And he believed that if you let yourself get very, very, very drunk, and if it's a regular thing, you're wide open to a psychic attack that you've described. Wide open. He used to talk about that. And he said he would see people sometimes, on videos outside nightclubs, and they'd actually be speaking almost demonically. And look, if I'm segueing now and you think I'm talking bollocks, which I do, tell me to shut up and I'll shut up. But I said, what do you mean, David? And he said, Richie, I've had me football life and I've gone out and about, I've had a few drinks with the lads. I've seen lads drunk, and they've lost their tempers. And then it's gone beyond that, way beyond it, to where they're behaving in abominable ways and they sound possessed. And there's an old psychic friend of his that was very important to him that turned him on to the idea that sometimes something attaches itself to those guys. I'm sorry for saying that now, I just wanted to say it because what you're saying is making so much sense to me. Go ahead.
Well, one of my ground rules for many years was never, ever do a healing or a psychic session on anybody who's had a drink. And there's a reason for that, and you've just answered it.
Is that it?
Now, the thing is, Richie, what is the most consumed drink in the world?
I would have said beer or wine, I would say.
Right. So, because I've got to be honest, I think water's gone out of the way. I don't even think it's
I shouldn't laugh, but you're right.
People say, what do you mean? Water? What do I want water for? Give me a beer. Give me wine every night. And you know what, Richie? This suppresses our spiritual growth, and it's done deliberately. So alcohol, as far as I'm concerned, is a big no-no. Now, there's also other things. Pharmaceutical drugs can also split you wide open. And many people have said that they feel hallucinations, they see things, they feel things when they're on drugs, because something opens up and can cause us to be a magnet for, I believe, certain types of spirit. I don't want to go too deep into it because you know what? It's very rare. But you know what? There's a healthy message here. Eat properly, drink plenty of water, fruit and vegetables. And you know what? Try not to drink so much alcohol. Try not to drink so much wine. And you'll feel much more stronger, more powerful. And you know what? Life becomes really beautiful. If we are dependent on alcohol, there's a reason for that, Richie. We're suppressing something. I never drunk wine or beer till I was 21 years old, and people used to think I was crazy. I used to go out and I used to laugh and joke, and they used to think there was something wrong with me because I had a great night out in a nightclub without alcohol.
It. Yeah, without it. Yeah. I've had a bad relationship with it from time to time. I've never been. I'm not dependent. I've never been dependent. And listen, one of the things I couldn't do on this program is I can't tell lies. I'm a lot of bad things, me, to people. People see me in different ways. But one of the things I can't do is lie. I certainly do at times drink more than I should. Maybe I'm in that phase, or I'm in a phase like that at the moment. Maybe I've had a few nights out when maybe I shouldn't have. But I'm not. I've always been able to stop. But I agree with when you talk about the mood. I don't get angry or aggressive or violent. I don't. But you certainly do get melancholic with it, and you do get a bit down in yourself, or you can do. Well, especially the day after. But maybe we don't talk enough about it because, it's very interesting. David saying that to me years ago. Never forget that. He said, I see, and he wasn't trying to make excuses for people who behaved badly. It wasn't the case that he was saying, oh, that's their get out of jail card because they had a psychic attack. But he was convinced, as you are, that alcohol is a gateway to something very dark that maybe we don't understand.
I'm sorry, but I have to agree. It's going to upset a lot of people. But then again, like anything in life, everything in moderation. I think there's a scale where you tip over, where if you drink too much, then it happens. But you know what? The odd drink every now and again, you do what, if it feels like it's a celebration or something. It's when you tip over, when you go overboard. And that's a great expression, when you go overboard. You're going to drown, or something is going to happen and you're going to struggle. So for me, you know what? Healthy life, healthy living is the new 2020. And I think it's the new age of living in happiness. We really need to start investing in our future. We need to invest in our body. We need to invest in our happiness. You create happiness from a healthy body, you will have no illness, and you will cure yourself from any disease. And that is my belief. If you look at me now, I look younger now than I did do 10 years ago, because I decided to invest in myself. And that is in all aspects of life, not just food, but in who I surround myself with.
And you do, Mark. You do, mate. You do. You do look, even the few years I've known you, you do. You glow. You looking after yourself the way you do. And it's not... People should understand it's not an expensive thing. It doesn't have to be expensive. It isn't. Nope. It's only if you believe it is. You do look like, and you're obviously healthy. Your eyes are shiny, and that must be a huge thing. And for so many people who've not experienced that, I know when I stopped drinking for a few weeks. I know when I start eating right for a few weeks and getting a bit more sleep. My God, Mark, you're reborn, aren't you?
You would not believe, and the other thing which is absolutely amazing that I came to understand is fasting. And fasting is the most amazing miracle in the world. If you learn how to fast, even if you do it, 1 day a week or 1 day a month, if you learn to fast and allow your body to heal itself, it's incredible. If you can do 2 or 3 days on just juice fasting, it's incredible. If you can do the rainbow fast, which is you start with the rainbow colors and that's all the fruits and vegetables one day of one colour and two colours through the rainbow colours. That's another wonderful thing. There's many things that are happening that I'm learning about now from many different people. I'm growing, I'm expanding. I'm not just relying on my understanding of spirituality. I am now going back to earth, the roots. I am learning about how to eat healthy and to look after my body. You know what? Do you know what I believe? And I said this today. If you want to heal yourself, if you want to keep illness away, I believe one of the best things to do is keep away from doctors, because if you're being fed, if you're being fed these, because we're all guinea pigs to a doctor, you know that, right? Because when we tell them something, they break it down with questions and answers, and then they come up with their answer, and then they give you tablets, and then you go back and say, these aren't working. And they go, okay, here's some more. And it keeps on going. It's like we're guinea pigs. But for me, I think, you know what? I'm not doing that now. I'm going to go and see what is the most natural way to heal from any issue that I have. And trust me, if you spend a little bit of time on the internet and listen to these amazing people on the internet who have ancient knowledge, you can get a fruit that can heal you with a certain issue, a vegetable that will heal you from a certain issue. And by looking at the fruit, you will see the signs. You cut a tomato in half and you will see the heart.
The heart, yeah.
You cut a carrot or split a carrot and look at it, you will see the eye, the retina of the eye. It looks like an eye. And if you get a walnut and break it open, you will see the brain. And Mother Nature gives us the signs to what we need to eat. And then when you start to realize, when you start to heal yourself from all the badness and you start to look after your body, something more beautiful happens. You become more aware of what you need without looking for the signs, because your body tells you what you need to eat. And now I can go to a market and I know exactly what my body needs, and I will eat what my body tells me that I need to eat. That's how remarkable our body is. Can you imagine that, Richard?
I can't. I'd love to, Mark. This is what I aspire to, and I really do. I'm not just saying this. I don't believe in, as I said, not here, not anywhere, not with my woman or my friends. I don't do it. I don't lie. I aspire to that. Let me read about 4 more tweets, and we've got about 5 or 6 minutes then, because the tweets are really interesting. Amazing what you're saying there. No doubt that Mother Nature or the earth provides us with all the solutions, with all the answers. I totally agree with you. Colin in Dublin says, honestly, I've seen alcohol lead to possession. That's where we get the language of alcohol from, you know, the demon drink, etc., says Colin. William says in Scotland, bar staff don't ask what's your poison for no reason. That's an excellent comment as well. Very good. And David tweets this. It's not negative. I understand why he's asking it. Has Mark ever come across anything that he would class as demonic? I asked you this before and I vaguely remember your answer, or maybe I don't. It was a long, long time ago. Did you ever encounter anything that worried you, my friend?
Nothing worries me, because as any pure energy healer knows, when I share my truth, if somebody comes to me with an issue, I never slam the door in their face, because that's an insult to why they came and that they were brought to me for a reason. Therefore, I trust and believe that whatever I am there to do to help through the hands of I believe, the universe, we can clear anything away, but it's a matter of trust and belief. So for me, yes, a lady once came to me, and I have a few of these stories that I write about, and she lied down on the healing bed, and all of a sudden neck started moving, her stomach started lifting, and I noticed strange things happening to her, and it was really very, very strange, Richard. What I was seeing, her body was arching very high. She was almost like being a contortionist, and I simply ignored it. What happened was, going back a little while before, I was given a gift by Cecilia, and I don't really believe in, the church and all of that, but she gave me a little bottle of holy water. And I thought, what the hell are you giving me that for?
Yeah.
And I put it aside out of the way. But funnily enough, as I'm doing this healing on this lady who was screaming, and my hands were upon her heart and head, I just trusted in it. And all of a sudden, like it happens, if you are really in that moment, I was pushed back. It wasn't a big push, but it was a push back. And I felt the force. And as I turned, my eyes captured on all the bottles and all the incense, my eyes captured on the bottle that Cecilia got me. And I thought, is this a joke? Is this real?
Yeah.
And I just thought, okay, I went for it. And I basically, I opened the bottle and threw it on her. And she said in Spanish, it's burning. And I thought, this is so weird.
I'd have been gone. I'm not saying this for a laugh. I'd have been gone out the door. And I really mean that.
No, that didn't affect me at all, because even though I knew deep down it was a weird situation, I knew for some reason that I needed to continue, and I believed in what I was doing when I first started. And I knew that she'd come to me for a reason, and I didn't question it. I just did it. And after 2 hours, it was gone. Richie, it was gone, and she was fine, and there was no problem. I really, truly believe the power that we all hold. If somebody comes to you in pain and suffering, you should take that as a beautiful sign that you have been given a chance to make a difference in their life.
That's a lovely thing to say. Can I ask you on that before we run out of time? I had the pleasure a few times of interviewing Father Vince Lampert. And Vince is the Catholic Church's only credited exorcist in the United States. And Vince is lovely. He's not, he's not dogmatic in his Catholicism. He's not. He's very open-minded. And that's why I brought him on television in London. I brought him on radio programs. And Vince's description of things would very much match yours. That's why I don't believe religion has anything to do with it.
Nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with it. So can I ask you one very quick question? Does the entity or the energy, does it leave through the head of the affected person? Out of the top of the head sometimes?
That's a really good question. But if you ask me, what is the most powerful place to work on any client, I would always say the head.
Right.
So therefore, when we are open, we talk about PowerPoints. And the PowerPoints that I was told and taught about are called chakras. Now, I don't really call them that. I call them PowerPoints, and I don't really focus on them. But what I do focus on is where my hand is taking me. So as a pure energy healer, I don't listen to what people say. I just listen and feel for my client where they're there in front of me. When that session was happening, and when I was giving a healing session to a German man who was the CEO of Schwarzkopf, was always at two places, the heart and the head. So there is something in that, Richard.
Here's a quick question. Thanks for that. Here's a quick question from David, and I should have asked this. In fact, I meant to ask it, and then I'm looking at the clock as well. If Cecilia gave you the holy water and it worked, that's really interesting. What could you conclude from that? Because I suppose there are several things you could conclude. One, maybe that it was symbolic in some way for the lady who was dealing with the entity. What did you conclude from it? That's very interesting now. The holy water working.
So this is my truth, okay? And I could be wrong, but this is my truth. If I hold a cross to a vampire and the vampire screams and it burns them, I don't believe it's the cross. I believe it's my belief in the cross.
Right.
So I believe that this holy water I had in my hand was going to cause them to cleanse and clear. And through the energy, through the hand, through the belief, through the power that is given to anybody, channeled at that given moment, you can use anything to clear negative energies, because that's all they are. Nothing more, nothing less. And it is easier than what the Hollywood mainstream media would pretend. It isn't that way that you spend 4 weeks trying to get the demon out. And it isn't that they levitate off the bed. They only do that to frighten the life out of people. But actually, what I was doing was what probably this guy does, who is of the cloth. That is, that my client arched because of the pain that they were going through and the energy that was in them. So they were moving their body like a contortionist, and they didn't know what they were doing. Their hands and everything was going everywhere. Their throat was moving and all of these things, but their head wasn't spinning around, 360 degrees. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Hollywood and all of this mainstream will always use things and bring fear into it. Whereas I say, you know what? It's actually not that difficult, and it's actually not that challenging. And actually, you know what? Anybody can do it. And the problem is ego is so big out there, and many teachers, many practitioners want you to think that they can only do it and you have to come to them. But that's not true, Richie.
That's really interesting, Mark, because Vince, the Catholic priest, everything he said echoed what you said there. Vince never saw any of these head twisting, any of that nonsense at all. Much of what he experienced with people was as you described the woman who came to see you. So that's really interesting, that. Yeah. Mark Bajerski is our guest. We've got about 2.5 minutes left today. It's flown by. We've gotten through a lot of the tweets. Many of them came in. Mark's website is markbajerski.com. Do check it out if you haven't before, and go to youtube.com and subscribe to or follow Mark's YouTube channel, because as I said, lots of important, lovely, intelligent, warm, big-hearted messages and videos on there with practical solutions for any number of things that you might think that you can't get your head round, or things that you might be trying to deal with. I think it's absolutely brilliant. So I suppose, as usual, I'll give you the final word. I know that very early in the new year, after Christmas, you'll come back and join us again. I do want to say, I always say this, and I don't want you to say anything now when I say this. Don't be saying anything about this radio programme, because you're too kind. I want to say this. The independent media wouldn't exist and wouldn't get from month to month without people like you looking out for it. And you never get a lot of credit for that, people like you, and you should do. So thanks for your kindness, not just for me. I'm well aware there are other people that you help out as well, not just materially, but with advice and using your own big following to introduce people to audiences that maybe they wouldn't have gotten before. So on behalf of the independent media, if I can speak for it just for 1 second, I want to thank you very much, my friend. Last word to you. It's markbajerski.com. Last word, my friend.
Well, Richard, no matter how much you try and stop me, it won't work, because the truth is, without you, nobody in this kind of field of work has a platform. You are the pinnacle of how the message gets out there and changes the world. And if anybody's listening to this show tonight, any of you felt that this 1 or 2 hours made a difference in your life, that you got something from it, I would ask you from the bottom of my heart to go to Richie's site and donate a little something. The reason why is because if 1 million people donate to Richie, that gives Richie the money to be able to keep going and share the most important messages that the mainstream media is trying to kill. So if you want to make a difference in this world and you're asking why and how can I do that, then make a difference today and go and donate a little bit of money to Richie Allen Show, and you will make a huge impact, a ripple effect that will make the world a better place. And we love you, Richie.
You're too kind. It goes both ways, Mark. Thanks for everything you do for people and all the things you do for people that you don't get credit for, the selfless things you do where you don't ask people for money. It stands to you. I think it'll stand to you till the end of time. All the best to you and yours. I know you're busy there, and I'll be talking to you anyway offline, of course, regularly as we do keep in touch. But you'll come back early in the new year and we'll pick up these subjects again, because we never have enough time. Thanks very much for everything. I really appreciate it.
Okay, love you, Richie.
You too, my friend. Bye for now. The brilliant Mark Bajerski, live on the line from Mijas Pueblo in Spain. markbajerski.com. If you haven't been to Mark's website, check it out. Top man he is. And he does an enormous amount of stuff for people for free. An enormous amount. You know, I see that. And I see a lot of things from this little vantage point here. in Greater Manchester. I see a lot of things and a lot of people. I see a lot of bullshitters and a lot of gurus and a lot of narcissists and a lot of truthers. And then I see guys like Mark Bajerski, and I'm a skeptic to my dying day about people. And I don't, I very rarely endorse anything. In fact, I don't really. But check out Mark Bajerski. Amazing that when we first spoke, some of my listeners did attend his academy, his Pure Energy Healing Academy in Mijas Pueblo. And he didn't know these people. They were known to me through the radio program. And they came back and gave glowing accounts of what they witnessed there and how they were treated. And I'll never forget that. Right, that's it for Monday's programme. Again, thanks to Mark. It's markbajerski.com, and it's Mark Bajerski, that's Bajerski on YouTube. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. Won't cost you anything, and you'll get notifications about his videos. Huge subscription. A lot of subscribers there, and he updates that channel daily, as I said, with positive messages, but also with workable solutions for problems. And one or two of you said, what about the lemon and the sage? The lemons and the sage for clearing the bad energy. If you go to his YouTube channel, there's a whole video explaining that very simply there. Right, back with you at 9:30 tomorrow morning for there's a newspaper review programme, 9:30 tomorrow morning. In the meantime, look after yourselves and one another. Leaving you with the Fab Four and a tune called Here Comes the Sun. Thanks for listening today. Speak tomorrow. Hi to Anne Gladman, by the way. Anne, thanks for your lovely message. Means a lot to me, Anne. Speak soon. Bye now.